Sometimes a single word is capable of changing the weight of the day. She doesn't scream, doesn't push, doesn't demand. It just falls inside us, like a drop of clear water touching a silent lake. And yet, everything moves. Have you ever noticed how certain words clear the air around them? As if the body breathed better after hearing them, even without understanding why. There is a type of sound that does not pass through the ears. It crosses the chest, touches the center, and rearranges what was out of place. We live surrounded by noise. News, opinions, demands rush. Words thrown like stones, repeated until the heart hardens. But there is another type of word. A word that doesn't weigh. A word that purifies. In nature's silent tradition, nothing forces change. Water does not argue with rock. The wind does not convince the tree. They just are. And when they are, they transform everything around them. The same happens inside us. There are words that we carry without realizing it. Internal words. Phrases repeated in silence day after day, shaping our posture, our attitude, our look. Some make us hard. Others return us to the flow. Perhaps you have come this far feeling tired that is difficult to explain, as if something was always on alert, as if the body was present, but the spirit was distant. This is not a mistake. It's just a sign of misalignment, like water standing too long. Today, we are not going to discuss beliefs. Let's not convince the mind. Let's just allow it. Allow certain words to be spoken with intention. Allow the sound to find the right space. And watch, almost in real time, the change in attitude happen. Nothing supernatural, nothing forced. Just a return to what was always there. If, at any point in this video, you feel your chest lighter or your breathing more deep, remain. Maybe this is the invisible knocking softly at the door. And if something in you recognizes this silent call, allow yourself to walk with me, without hurry, without expectations, just listening, feeling, and letting the transformation reveal your own natural, internal, and deeply true rhythm. Before any gesture, before any decision, there is a silent word if forming within us. It does not appear written. There is no clear sound, but it guides the body like an invisible compass. Attitude is not born out of nowhere. It emerges from the soil where internal words are repeated. Just as the earth responds to the type of seed it receives, the spirit responds to the words that inhabit him. Observe a stream. He doesn't need to think to get around a rock. He does not debate with himself about the best path. He just follows the internal sound of descent, obeying the language of gravity. This language does not use letters, but it is precise. Within us, something similar happens. The words we repeat, even in our thoughts, create direction. They tilt their body towards defense or opening. They stiffen their shoulders or relax their breathing. They change the way we enter an environment, how we look at someone, how we react to the unexpected. Maybe you've never stopped to listen to what you say to yourself when you wake up. Perhaps these words are automatic, inherited, ancient, short, almost imperceptible phrases, like wind passing between dry branches. But even the lightest wind, when constant, shapes the landscape. There are words that close. They contract. They create invisible boundaries between you and the world. And there are words that open. They don't promise control, just space. In nature, sound always precedes movement. Thunder warns rain. The song of the bird announces the dawn. The crackling of the ice reveals the change of season. The universe communicates before acting. When we use words with intention, something similar happens. It's not magic, it's alignment. Sound, spoken or thought, reorganizes the internal rhythm, like a drum marking the beat. Step from an ancient walk. Therefore, certain words calm you down instantly, not because they solve problems, but because they change the state from which we deal with them. The attitude changes before the situation. In modern life, we are trained to react, respond quickly, defend positions, explain too much. But the hidden power of words is not in speed. It's in the conscious choice of what echoes inside. A single word, when said with presence, can interrupt an entire cycle of tension. It can soften a harsh response. It can restore dignity to a difficult time. It can turn a confrontation into a pass. It is not necessary to understand everything now. Just realize. Understand how the body reacts when certain words appear. Realize the weight, the temperature, the space they create. Along this path, you will not be asked to repeat empty phrases. You will be invited to feel, listening to the effect before the meaning, allowing the sound to find its natural place, like water finding a bed forgotten. And little by little, without effort, the attitude begins to change. Not because you decided to change, but because something inside Rec discovered a more harmonious way of existing. There is a type of cleaning that does not happen with visible water. It does not wet the skin and leaves no external traces. Still, in the end, something inside is clearer, lighter, like the air after rain. In nature, sound always participates in renewal rituals. The river sings as it takes away what no longer belongs. The wind whistles as it passes through old leaves, detaching what has already completed its cycle. Even silence, when deep, purifies. Inside us, the sound also cleans. Not just the sound heard, but the sound felt. The vibration that passes through the body when a word is spoken with true intent, not by mechanical repetition but by presence. Purification is not eliminating thoughts. It's not expelling emotions. It's allowing everything to find its natural place without resistance. Just like water doesn't fight dirt, it just passes by and takes it with it. When we pronounce certain words slowly, something reorganizes. Breathing adjusts, shoulders sag. The mind slows down enough to hear what was muffled. This is purification. In modern life, we accumulate invisible waste, unspoken expectations, swallowed tensions, postponed responses. All of this settles in the body like fine dust. And the more we avoid feeling, the heavier the movement becomes. Conscious sound acts like an internal bath. It does not force what is trapped to come out. He invites. And what needs to go, goes. Imagine a word being said like someone washing their hands before entering the house. No rush, no distractions, just the simple gesture, repeated with respect. Intention is what transforms the common act into a ritual. In the invisible tradition of nature, intention is not desire, it's alignment. It is when what one feels, what one thinks, and what one expresses walk in the same direction. When this happens, the sound stops being noise and becomes a passage. You can realize this now, even without saying anything. Notice how your body reacts when you imagine a soft word. Maybe your face will relax. Maybe the breath goes down a little deeper. These are ancient responses, recorded before rational language. Purifying yourself through sound is remembering that the body understands before the mind, that the spirit responds before the explanation. That change begins in the internal state, not in external effort. There is no need to create a special scenario. There is no need to isolate yourself from the world. Purification happens in the middle of life, between one commitment and another, when we choose words that do not hurt, that do not harden, that do not distance us from ourselves same. Every time a word is born from the right intention, something dissolves. A tension, a fear, an ancient rigidity, and little by little, without advertising, space appears. Space to act more calmly, to answer more clearly, to walk with less weight. This is the purification that is not seen, but felt, and it sets the stage for something deeper, change happening in the now, without waiting, without promise, just as a natural consequence of being aligned with the sound, right, at the right time. Now something different happens. It's not an explanation. It is not a new idea entering the mind. It is a silent adjustment, almost imperceptible, as when the body finds a position more comfortable without you asking. Maybe you feel it first in the rhythm of your breathing. She becomes less hurried, less defensive, as if the air finally had room to enter in one piece. The change in attitude does not announce its arrival. She doesn't ask permission. It simply happens when the internal state changes. And the internal state changes when the right words meet the right silence. Notice this moment. Nothing was resolved out there. The world remains the same. And yet, something inside no longer reacts in the same way. This is live transformation. In nature, change is rarely abrupt. The day does not invade the night. It infiltrates. First a line of light, then a lighter tone in the sky. When we realize it, it's morning. The same thing happens with attitude. You don't decide to stop resisting. Resistance just loses strength. Not because it was fought, but because it no longer found food. Words that carry intention function as portals. When we cross them, we are not the same. Even if everything seems the same, the tone of voice changes. The look softens. The body stops anticipating attacks that may never come. Maybe you realize this by remembering a recent situation, something that would normally arouse tension. Notice how the image now appears with less charge. It's not indifference, it's balance. This is the silent secret. The attitude changes before the mind can name the change. And when the mind tries to keep up, the body has already found a more natural way of respond. At this point, do nothing. Don't try to hold back this feeling. Don't try to reproduce it. Water does not need to be grabbed to keep flowing. If something in you is saying this makes sense, don't turn it into a concept. Stay in the experience. It's like this that change sticks, not by force, but by familiarity. Here, in the center of this moment, you are not learning something new. You're remembering. Remembering what it's like to exist without constant tension. Remembering how life responds when not pushed. If this idea resonates with you, if this state seems recognizable, it is a sign that something inside he has already woken up, not as a sudden revelation, but as a gentle return to axis. From here, decisions begin to come from elsewhere. Words come out with fewer edges. Silences are no longer uncomfortable, and even conflicts seem to lose some of the weight they had. The change does not call for applause. It does not require witnesses. It just integrates silently, like a new walking pattern. And most subtle of all, you don't feel like you're doing anything different. You feel like you are being. This is how the invisible acts. No fuss, no promise, effortless. Attitude changes, not because you decided to change, but because, for a few moments, you stopped resisting the natural flow that always was available. And when this flow is allowed, even briefly, it leaves marks. Soft marks. Vivid brands. This is the moment when the secret stops being just heard and begins to be lived, here, now, in the body, in the rhythm, in the silence that remains even after the words stop. There is a meeting point where what is human stops fighting against what is unseen. That point is not far away. It does not require isolation or escape from the world. It arises when the internal rhythm comes into agreement with the rhythm of life. In nature, everything moves in visible and invisible layers at the same time. The tree grows upwards, but it is in the dark of the earth that its roots grow stronger. The river reflects the sky, but is guided by forces that do not appear on the surface. Nothing is separate. So are we. The gesture one sees is just the latest expression of something that began in silence, an intention, one state, an unspoken word. When the internal words align, a bridge is created. On the one hand, the world of choices, actions, relationships. On the other, the invisible field that sustains all of this. The flow, time, encounters, coincidences that ask for no explanation. Harmony is not control. It's listening. It's understanding when to advance and when to give in, when to speak and when to allow silence respond. Just as the mountain does not compete for space with the sky, it just remains. When we are out of alignment, we try to force results. We push decisions. We speed up processes. And the body feels it. The mind fragments. The spirit moves away. But when attitude is born from alignment, something changes in the way we walk. The steps become firmer, even without rushing. Choices carry less weight, and the error stops being a threat, becoming just part of the journey. The invisible does not ask for blind faith. He asks for presence. It reveals itself in the way the day responds when you don't react automatically, in the way an encounter happens effortlessly, the moment you realize you don't need to prove anything to be whole. The right words, said at the right time, tune this silent relationship. They do not command the invisible. They talk to him, just as the wind shapes the dune without ever touching it rigidly. Intention shapes experience when there is no resistance. Maybe you notice this in small details. A conflict that dissolves before growing. An answer that emerges clearly. without anxiety, a feeling of being in the right place, even without external reasons. This is harmony happening, not as a permanent state, but as a constant return. Go and come back, just like the tides. Being human is not living apart from the invisible. It's learning to recognize when it manifests through you. Don't be careful in the choice of words, respecting your own rhythm. When this harmony is established, something profound happens. Life stops seeming like a series of obstacles and starts to show itself as a living path, responsive, sensitive to the way you walks on it. It's not that everything is easy, it's just that everything is coherent, and this coherence is born from the silence you cultivate, of the words you choose, and the attitude that arises when the human and the invisible stop opposing each other and they finally begin to walk side by side, in the same flow, under the same inner sky. The true test of any silent secret does not come in withdrawal, but in the middle of common life, in traffic, in difficult conversations, on days when time seems too short. It is there that words show whether they have really taken root. Walking with this secret does not mean repeating phrases all day long. It means choosing, at each moment, where the attitude comes from the old habit of automatic reaction or the new space that opened up inside. In everyday life, change reveals itself in small gestures, a pause before responding, a look that listens more than it judges, a silence that is not escape, but presence. Just as the river does not abandon its nature when crossing the city, you also don't lose that alignment when you step into the noise of the world. Water is still water, even surrounded by concrete. The words you cultivate internally become walking companions. They do not need to be consciously remembered. They act as a constant background, adjusting the pace, the tone, the rhythm. When a challenge arises, you notice it first in your body. If there is tension, something needs adjustment. If there is stiffness, it may be time to soften it. This bodily listening is part of the secret. An aligned attitude does not avoid conflicts, but it changes how you go through each of them. Less wear, less defense, more clarity about what really matters. At work, this may mean not getting into unnecessary disputes. In the family, it might be knowing when to talk and when to just be. With yourself, it may mean stopping demanding yourself beyond what the moment requires. Walking with this secret is accepting that not every day will be light. But even on heavy days, there is a more harmonious way to carry the weight. Distributing, breathing, choosing words that don't add extra load. Life begins to respond to this adjustment, not as a reward, but as a natural consequence. When you don't push, things rearrange themselves. When you don't force it, gaps appear. When it doesn't harden, it finds its way through. This secret does not need to be shared with anyone. It reveals itself in the way you move. People feel. The environment feels it, even without knowing how to explain it. And most importantly, you feel. Feel when it is out of alignment. Feel it when it returns. This feeling becomes a compass. Over time, you realize that you don't walk alone. The invisible accompanies every step, not as something distant, but as the flow itself that supports the path. Taking this secret into your daily life means allowing each day to be a gentle exercise in presence. No spiritual rigidity, no performance, just living, choosing, adjusting. And so, little by little, what started as words turns into posture, in attitude, in a way of existing. A simpler way, quieter, more true. At the end of it all, there is no technique left. There is no formula left. One state remains. As when the day ends and the light dissolves without announcement, what remains is not the sun but the calm it left on the horizon. You don't need to remember every word or every image. What matters has already been absorbed by the body, how the earth absorbs rain without needing to understand it. This path does not call for constant vigilance. He asks for feedback. Return whenever you notice stiffness. Return when the world seems too heavy. Return when the mind accelerates and the heart moves away. The right words will still be available. They don't get lost. They just wait for the necessary silence to be heard again. From now on, whenever you feel the urge to react, remember the water, not from her strength, but of the persistent smoothness with which it finds passage. Whenever you feel confused, remember the wind. He doesn't choose a fixed path, but it never fails to get where it needs to be. And when tiredness sets in, remember the space between one word and another. That's where the invisible breathes. This secret does not make life predictable. He makes it habitable, wider, more honest. You remain human, feel scared, feel doubt, but you no longer get lost in them so easily. If something has changed in you over this time, even if it's just a subtle adjustment, honor that. Don't rush. Don't explain too much. Allow this new attitude to reveal itself little by little, like a path that is drawn under your feet as you walk. If you feel like there is something invisible guiding your days, something that cannot be seen, but is recognized, this space is also yours. Subscribe, stay, keep walking with us through this silent territory where the soul finds rest and everyday life becomes a simple ritual of presence. Because the journey doesn't end here, it just deepens. And maybe at some point, when everything is silent, you realize that what you always called destiny, it was not a distant or immutable force, but only the constant whisper of the kami, walking by your side from the first step, waiting patiently until you learn to listen.